Welcome, everyone, to this video, which is a very important video that I need to put out for the sake of everyone listening. I just want to point out time is running out. There is a lot of stuff going on in this world that no one really knows about. Whether it's the wars, whether it's the upcoming trials that are going to happen, it's going to happen. We don't know when, don't know how. But it's good to remember that we are not alone. I am going to make this video, and I'm comfortable making this video for the sole reason that some people that watch this video is going to think a completely different person. It's going to think completely different of me, and that's okay. It's best that you guys know my past, and I'm unashamed, but it has to be put out there for the world. So starting off from the beginning, I was born in, I believe, 1994. Obviously, I was born in 1994, Melrose Park, the hospital in Melrose Park. My mom gave birth to me with my dad, and it was before they got married or after they got married. My belief is that I was being born, and I think it was for my parents' sake, I believe it was an unexpected pregnancy. So they got married by court. There was no massive wedding recital or anything like that. It was just a court wedding, marriage, signed document. And I was conceived, or she was conceived. I was conceived, and I lived in a very ghetto place in Irving Park. I was an only child at the time. I lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in Higgins, across the street from Harlem CTA station. And I lived a very humble life as a child. I didn't have any friends. No friends whatsoever. I went to preschool, went to kindergarten, and I went to a Chicago public school called Garvey Elementary. And even then, I had 0 friends. There was this one friend that I guess I considered was a friend at the time. His name was Jimmy. So Jimmy, if you recognize this face, I want to thank you for your memories. And I remember as a kid, I would always walk around the school by myself. Kids are playing in the park. I was the only child. I had no friends. The only exceptions was maybe a couple neighbors throughout the year, but I was always with my mom and my dad. And then later on, my mom got pregnant with my little sister. And things were good. I was still so young at the time where I didn't know right from wrong. I was still learning. I remember life being so simple. Life being so simple. And then eventually, we moved out of Irving Park to live in Niles. And we got a 3-bedroom apartment. So my sister was still a toddler. I wasn't a smart kid when I was in school. There used to be an elementary school that I went to as a child. It's no longer a school now, but it was called Stevenson Elementary. And there were some times where I was completely uneducated. And I was set back a year. And eventually down the line, I developed a anger problem. And still at that time, I had 0 friends. I had 0 friends. I even remember during music class when I was in Garvey, or if I was in Stevenson Elementary, I don't really remember the two. There was this lesson where they were studying about hip hop and rap, and the project was to group up with some people, to group up with some students, a poem that can be a rap. And the thing that's so sad, it was about me. You Got No Friends was the title. That really destroyed me deep down. But I understand it was a school project, so there was nothing I could really do, and I just rolled with it. But deep inside, I was hurting. So I was yearning for friends. I was really yearning for friends. And that was probably my downfall. I was bullied. I eventually gained some friends. And the friendship I had was more of a what they need from me instead of what they want to do for me. The only time I probably had a really good friendship is when a friend of mine named Brian. I remember I was in a school bus and I had these kids bullying me. And then my friend just stands up and threatens the bully, saying, "Don't mess with him." And eventually our friendship just grew. But even before I met Ryan, I met this guy named Jerry. And he was a very interesting fellow. I don't know what he's doing now today, or if he's still alive. I don't know. But there's always that type of hatred and this type of untrustfulness in him. I remember I used to have a Nintendo 64. I had Super Mario Brothers 64, best game in Nintendo 64 ever created, and he took it. Took money, thought he was my friend, but really wasn't, using me for what I do, using me for the stuff I have, envying me, coveting stuff. So that friendship didn't really go that far. Then when I met Ryan, we had a thriving friendship. And then I met some of his friends. We used to go to this place in Gulf Mill called the Teen Center. This was around when I was in junior high. And this is when I was like really like making silly, stupid videos. Like a lot of silly, stupid videos. And I was still yearning for attention. I was attention driven. I wanted friends so I could have memories, because I was trying to fill in the gap of the past childhood I had where I had zero friends. I had zero friends. That bit me in the back though. Because eventually when I met with my friends' friends, and we all started getting friendship, there was a lot of controversial stuff that would happen in the friendship that my heart just couldn't take. There were some friends that were suicidal, and I was always the one to stop them from doing it. There were friends that needed my help, and I would always help them with open arms because I was a good person. But then eventually I met some more friends, and I had to choose between these friends or that friends. Could never have it together. And that was probably the biggest mistake. To where I got more along with the other group of friends that were bad influences on me. I didn't know how to really cope with that. I was in bad company. But deep down inside of my childhood brain was like, I need friends. Because I never had any friends when I was in elementary school. I never had any friends when I was in preschool or kindergarten. Fellow colleagues and classmates, but never true friends. And I was blinded. I was blinded by the friends I have to what's really going on. Why are they my friend? Why are they my friends? So going more further, my other group of friends were rebelling against another group of friends. So they were kind of like at war in their minds. It kind of expected to be. Even met more friends, and more friends, and more friends, and more friends. Always on this side. But they were heavily influenced with a lot of evil in their brain. This came when I was almost to be 21. Now it came to almost be a full-grown adult. And I'd always hang out with the friends, but they'll always do these evil things, and I didn't know what was going on because I was just going with the flow. I was going to where they're going, so I'm going with them. But then I'm rejecting those from the other side. So then then we started going to clubs. Then we started to do hangouts. Then they started to fornicate with a bunch of women. And I was in their crowd. But deep down in my heart, I knew it was wrong. But I didn't want to leave because that would empty the void, or that would fill the void. No, that would empty the void of me having friends. So I was easily influenced by things. I was easily influenced by wrongdoings and drinking and going to clubs and going to gentlemen clubs and just trying to be with the crowd. My friendships have a lot of good memories and bad memories. It's bittersweet. Part of the reason why I had to endure all of this stuff in my past was because I was influenced by people. I was easily deceived. In the Bible, it says, bad company brings bad morals. That's what I was doing. I've had times where I had a bunch of stuff going on, and I'm always trying to be the life of the party. I'm always trying to be, the good person. Hung out with a bunch of group of friends that are friends with the other friends, and we all had this big group. But then that's when things really started to turn bad. Some group of friends will go against another group of friends, and like I said, they're rivaling against each other. It was almost like a beef between different morals. When I was with the other group of friends, I was abandoning my true friendships. I'm ashamed to say that. Because deep down in the past, I yearned for friendships. Even if it wasn't the best friendships, I yearned for companionship, for community. And that bit me harder than a shark's jaw can bite. It bit me so hard. Because of my past, I went down this deep hole. And I always thought that my friends were using me. Maybe they was. Maybe they weren't. But I always had the good intention in my heart to help people. Even when the other group of friends that I was with at the time, probably around high school, I did anything and everything to be sure they were okay. I was what they call the guardian of the friendships. But then just like in the terms of the Dark Knight, you may die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Eventually I got so over influenced to where I did all this ungodly stuff. Going to clubs, drinking every weekend, doing drugs, fornicating, sexual immorality. And I was I think around like preschool to like junior high, I was a virgin. Then I gave my virginity away to a woman who I will not name just for the sake of her privacy. I've had relationship problems. I've had a lot of doubt in who I truly am. And the whole root of my issues was because I yearned for friendships. I yearned for friendships so much that one day I decided to go to my father's bedroom. Curious. I see all these magazines. I was curious. I took one magazine out. This was the root of my biggest problem that I still deal with to this very freaking day. I pull out a magazine, and it is all in Japanese or Korean. I think it was all in Korean or Japanese, whatever. It was a pornography magazine. My dad had a lot of different issues of Playboy, Hustler, Penthouse, you name it. And it got me hooked. Because the type of dead feeling I had yearning for friendships when I was never really part of a friendship like I thought I was made me go for some quick dopamine hits. And that further fueled my downfall to my ungodly behavior. The whole root of the problem was because I yearned for friends, but I didn't know right from wrong because I was still young. I didn't know what was right and wrong. But I knew deep down in my heart that I'm a good person and I help people out. I have the fruits of the Spirit. But I was deceived by going after what they want. And that's a sin. Envy. Coveting. Adultery. I was in a lot of problems. But the problems were bittersweet. Example, I would go out, hang out with my friends. And we all had like a group of friends, but they all had like sinful desires. And of course, I'm like not trying to be like separate from the crowd. I would kind of like join in on that. That's the biggest mistake. It's sweet because I'm with them and I'm in their own steps, but it's also bitter because I know deep down in my heart that wasn't the right thing to do. See, I was born Christian. I was born and raised in a Baptist church. Yet I was never baptized as a baby. My mom was Protestant. My dad was Catholic. My grandma was Baptist. I'd go to church and always go to like Sunday school, but I always never wanted to go to Sunday school, even though I was yearning for friendships. So going to Sunday school, I had a couple of good churchgoers that I always hang out with. But the type of like feeling I had was not of the Spirit. It was of the world. I wanted to have friendships that last, not just a fellow community that I can see every Sunday. It wasn't filling the void in my heart. So, if you think about it, I went through all of this, to come crashing straight down. Come crashing straight down. I yearned for validation. I yearned for prideness. I yearned for community. And I was all blinded by what is right and wrong. That's why I'm struggling with pornography. That's why I'm struggling with nicotine addiction. That's why I'm struggling with loneliness. Another factor with the friendship thing is I went through all of these different relationships with these different women. And there was just this one particular relationship that broke me deep down inside. It broke me to where I thought love doesn't exist. And I remember I made a song about it. It was Love Doesn't Exist, or Are We Brainwashed Because It's Just a Phase? I don't know. There was a lot of hardship when I wrote that song. And I was very heartbroken. I'm striving to be better, but I'm also yearning for community and friendships. Even if it wasn't ungodly. Even if it was ungodly, I still yearn for friendship, for validation, for knowing that I'm like popular, or I'm heavily influenced by my presence for them. But I was too weak. I was too weak. I followed in the footsteps of something I know in the fact of my heart I'm not. I followed it. Why did I follow it? Because the root of the problem was I never had friends to begin with. I was always looking forward to hanging out with people and be with them. But then when the true colors start to show, I notice that this is probably not for me. There was a lot of times where we had to back off of our friendships. And it sucked. But again, it was bittersweet. I sought validation. I sought commitment. I sought all of this stuff. But I was blinded to what was really happening. Let's fast forward. When I started dating my current girlfriend, which we are now engaged, was like a breath of fresh air, but it was also a wake-up call. Because when you strive for something that God wants you to be, but you're always straying towards what the world wants you to be, there's a conflict of interest. So when I was with my girl, pursuing and just trying to live a nice life with my beloved, my friendships left me. They always said, "Oh, you're always with your girl, so you never want to have a chance to hang out with me." But then if I try to hang out with them, then the girl's like, "Oh, why are you always hanging out with your friends? You should hang out with me." So it's like a conflict. I don't know what to do. So I try to balance it. And then another hit in the coffin, the nail in the coffin for me, was my old friend coming back into my life. My old friend Ryan, who I love so dearly. He was struggling. He was struggling with his own personal and mental occurrences he's having in his life. He needed a place to stay. And I invited him in. And I knew him longer than any of my other friends combined. He was probably the only true friend that ever understood me, and I understood him. But he was so broken with what has happened to him in the past that It haunts him to this very day. I still went through with helping him because, in my mind, God would help him too, so I must help him. But then the colors really started to show, and I could tell that he was struggling, and I could tell that he was very influential, but not from his own mind, from a mind that deceived him. Alcohol. I made rules saying you must not do this. You can do this, but you must not do that. And he's trying so hard to follow the rules because he respects my family as much as I respect his family. But the alcohol was taking control. And I knew it was alcohol because when I was lonely at the time, just with my girl, I was always yearning for something to fill that void that I lost. And one of it was shopping. Whether it's perfume, whether it's candles, whether it was this love of whiskey that I developed. I yearned for shopping to fill the void of something that I lost. And it still didn't satisfy me. It still did not satisfy me. But then when I saw how alcohol can influence a person that I loved so dearly, as my own brother, change his way, that sealed it for me. He was not the person that was meant, that I thought was him. That was not Ryan. But still, I always want to be sure that I'm helping a brother in need, because Christ would do the same thing. But I had to endure all of this domestic issue when he was with his woman at the time, or if they still are. And they kept on breaking the rules to where my family almost gets evicted. I had to put the foot down. I was like, you have to leave. As much as it hurted me deep down inside, I told them, you have to leave. Because my mom and my roommate cannot take this any longer. And I may have said some stuff that was completely out of the ordinary of my character. But it had to be said. I was in that feat of anger. And that feat of authority, because I'm the only man in the house. So I had to help my family in need, where they were struggling as much as I was struggling. So when they left, felt peace. But I also still feel sorrow and pain. And it goes back to the root of the problem. You had friends, and then your friends are gone. And then it's the same scenario. You yearn for friendship. That's what my mind is. The root of the problem is I yearn for friendship. Ever since I was a little boy in kindergarten. Never had friends. But you want to know the really good part about this? I was taught a lesson. And I knew that what I was going to do was going to affect my way of life. And it helped so much. Yet still a struggle, it helps so much. During the time of COVID, I would still hang out with this other group of friends, but I was still feeling a void when I'm not with them. And then I see on the news a lot of people are dying from COVID-19. And I remember looking at this sermon, which I barely ever do unless I have like a time of desperate need. And during the sermon, the pastor was praying, and I was praying. It was me and my girl. Me and her were praying, and we felt warmness in our stomach. Warmness in our stomach, both her and me. Supernatural feeling. I never got COVID. Never did. My mom had COVID. My sister had COVID. My roommate had COVID. I never had COVID. It's amazing. It's amazing what the Lord can do. But again, still trying to fill the void. So then, while it was getting to the very end of having my beloved brother and his girlfriend living because they want to get back on their feet, that's when the testimony of when I was having bad, horrible nightmares, and I prayed for God to forgive me and for me to turn from my wicked ways. When I felt intense heat throughout my entire body, trembling and crying. And then the Lord put in my heart that He never left me, and He's been there with me the entire time of my sorrow, of my loneliness, of my wicked nature. He's been there for me. Why did He make me go through everything that I went through? It was so I could see the truth. I go back in my memories of when I was at the clubs, drinking Ciroc, Coronas, smoking weed, going to strip clubs, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that, and it pains me inside to see who I was. It really is painful for me to watch what my past was. When I got saved, because I truly believe that when I prayed in that bed, or by my bed, with the horrible dreams and nightmares, and I felt that intense heat and trembling and crying, I knew for a fact that I was saved. No doubt about it. I felt born again. And with that, being born again, God put in my heart to buy a Bible. God put in my heart to buy a cross. God put in my heart to find a church. God put in my heart to find a community. But when one door closes, another one opens. The door that closed was my friendships. I no longer talk to my old friends. Maybe once in a while, but not all the time. Just kind of closed. But then another one opened. So I really felt like I wasn't lost anymore when I found God. I still yearn for friendship But now I don't want friendships that won't last. I want friendships that will last for eternity. And I have a friend, and his name is Jesus Christ. There's no other way to fill the void than having something deep down your heart that your soul is yearning for. Christ did that for me. He filled the void. And he had me go through all of the trials and all of the stuff that went on in my life and showed me the truth of alcohol. When I got saved, I never want a sip of alcohol anymore. Even if I do go for a drink or two, I don't go overindulge. And when I do, I feel horrible. I don't want to swear anymore. I don't want to be an influence to the world anymore. I want to live a life that God wants me to live. And he told me to be patient. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. I went to church. And I went to this Lutheran church when I got saved. And I was still spiritually a child. I was still trying to figure out the type of person that Jesus was. But then during church, God put in my heart to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I read all 4 chapters. All 4 books. And I now see how God really is in human form. And he said in this verse, there is no greater love than to lay your own life for your friend's sake. There's no greater love than to lay down your own life for other people. That's what Jesus did. And when I went to that Lutheran church, it was an okay church. I still didn't feel like I belonged. Still yearning for community, because that hole is still going to be deep down inside me, to where I yearn for community. But now it's like I'm pursuing a more holy, godly community that has good morals and good sense of urgency for the gospel. But then again, I didn't feel like I belong in that church. So then I asked God, why doesn't this church help me? Show me a true church that will help me with this. And then God put in my heart to go to this church called The Bridge. And when I went to The Bridge for the first time, I was still thinking of the Gospels of Jesus, where Jesus walked into the tabernacle and saw that there was tables where they're selling goods, and then Jesus flipping over the tables saying, you made my father's house a den of thieves. When I walked into The Bridge, I saw that they were handing out coffee and merch. And yes, that might be something that's a little on the downside of that church, but it doesn't matter, because the community there is so good. They sing worship songs. They preach good messages. They condemn the heart. And it truly is what God wanted me to do. And then God put in my heart to start serving there. So I am now still currently in training to be in the live stream booth for their Saturday service. And when that happened, I met people that have the same influence as me, especially this one lady who yearns for friendships just like me, because when she found God, she lost all her friendships. When he found God, he lost all his friendships. When I found God, I lost all my friendships. Still have yet to currently hang out with them, but I trust in God's timing. I trust in God's timing. Going back to my past, where I yearned for friendships, and then I eventually got them, but not for the right reasons. And then the void just feels bigger and bigger and bigger. But then when I received the Holy Spirit, this void closed, smaller, 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 smaller. Bless be to God. If it wasn't for me finding Christ, who knows what I would be in the future. I still look at my past and see how evil and awful my stuff was. And I may sound crazy, but those that understand the truth, you will understand what I'm going through. The work of the Lord is patient and kind and loving and joyful. The fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such law there are no things. I'm going to go a little bit more far back before I close this video. How was I able to discover God fully if I didn't understand anything from Sunday school? I did know that Jesus Christ was a person in Sunday school. I remember the hymns, Jesus loves me, this I know, all that. But I still never understood the true meaning of Christianity. But there was a couple of occurrences that sowed the seed in my heart, which was soon later bloomed to what it is today. One of which was my father, and he struggled with alcoholism just as much as my friends probably do. But he died of a heart attack for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. He was brought back to life, and he told me he was in the gates of hell. He told me he was in the gates of hell, so he told me hell is real. Don't go there. And as a small kid at that time, as like mid-teenager-ish, I knew that, okay, this is pretty freaky. This is probably a surreal dream that he had. I didn't know if it was real or not. But then he still went down the deep rabbit hole to where he was struggling with depression, and he did all these drugs, and he did all these ungodly things that got him locked up. And then what was brought in place was his brother, which was my uncle. And he was a God-fearing man. But deep inside, I was like, if this is religion, I don't want it. Because he would preach out in the streets. He built a cross. He handed out tracts. He even decided to perform exorcisms or casting out demons in his room. he told me hell is real. And this is when I was still influenced by my friends. We were trying to make music together because my talent was music, and they were always using me for my music, which kind of sucked. But at the same time, I didn't care because I yearned for the friendship. We made some songs with some people. They were into hip hop, so we were just kind of going for what they want to do. I was just kind of serving them. But then these songs like really stirred my uncle the wrong way. And he made a video to me saying I'm going to hell. The same uncle that sowed the seed of hell is real, the same uncle that sowed the seed of Christianity, told me I'm going to hell. That didn't steer right with me. So when I decided that he's a little nuts in the head, it's because I didn't understand the truth either. I still even believe that when this one time I was at my complex pool, that I was just in the pool, and then my uncle was like, "Hey, do you want to be baptized?" I was like, "What's baptized?" Because I was at a Baptist church and I was never baptized. And my uncle was like, "Oh, this is when you give your life to Jesus." I was like, "Okay," not knowing what I'm actually going through. And he dipped me in the water. I was in the pool at the time. He dipped me in the water, and really, it didn't really feel like anything. But maybe this is the way he was sowing the seed more. And then this was at the time where I was like working in different jobs, and I needed to figure out what I want to do in life. My uncle worked at Home Depot, and this was the time I think I quit, or I was fired from Chipotle, and I quit from Portillo's. And he was like begging me, like he was forcing me to like sign an application to Home Depot. And eventually I had to do it because he was basically the man of the house, and he ruled with authority. And funny enough, I got the interview and the second interview right after, so I knew for a fact I was getting hired. But then during that time, my uncle got into some legal trouble and got locked up. Immediately terminated from his job. That leaves a bad reputation on my ass. But going back now, this happened around 2016, it's 2025. I'm still employed with Home Depot. My uncle sold the seed to my future. And my future's now. If it wasn't for all this stuff happening in my life, I would never understand the true meaning of what Christ did. Sacrifice his own life for our sake. My uncle went through a lot of hardship, and eventually he apologized for the stuff he was doing because God was punishing him. He was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to do that." He apologized to me. I apologized to him. I apologize to my exes. I apologize to my friends. I apologize to everyone I've known. And if there's anyone that hasn't heard from me apologizing, I will say it blatantly in a video. I am sorry. Forgive me for what I've done to you. In the Bible it says, you forgive others, your Father will forgive you. So this is my forgiveness for you. I forgive you of everything. Forgive me of everything. If I didn't find Christ, I don't know what I was today. I don't know who I would be. And yesterday, I received Holy Communion. And then this coming weekend, I'm getting baptized. God is working in so many different ways, and it interlines with everything happening the way He wants it to be. got trust in Him. My past was my testimony. The evil I was back then, no more am I that. Yet, I'm still going to be struggling with roots of problems, but it is no longer grabbing a hold of me. No longer grabs a hold of me. I am no longer shackled by the sin that I went through or that I'm going through because Christ set me free. If this doesn't influence you to find God, I don't know what will. I've shown you my true colors. Now let Christ show yours. God bless. And I pray that this message comes out. God bless everyone. Have a good night.